The front door of the worn-out suburban house swung open, and 3 pairs of identical, mischievous brown eyes locked on the stranger standing there. In the span of 3 seconds, one little boy hurled a toy truck, another sprayed her sneakers with a water gun, and the third yelled, "Run while you can!" From the kitchen, a tall man with tired shoulders but a sharp, guarded gaze shouted, "You're the new nanny? Good luck lasting an hour." She tightened her grip on her tote bag, smiled at the chaos instead of flinching, and stepped inside. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Most people start by, saying hello, she said, wiping water from her ankle. The tall man, Nathan Cole, leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Most people start by walking back out. He looked like he'd been living on 3 hours of sleep for 3 years. Stubble shadowed his jaw, his t-shirt was wrinkled, and there was a smudge of peanut butter on his forearm. The triplets, Eli, Ethan, and Evan, all 5 years old, were tearing through the living room like a hurricane with legs. "Your ad said you needed help," she said. "My name's Harper. I'm not here to scare easy." Nathan's eyes flickered with something. Surprise? Hope? But it vanished fast. Last 3 nannies left before lunchtime. One locked herself in the bathroom. "Guess I'll aim for dinner," Harper replied, kneeling so she was eye level with the boys. "You guys like pancakes?" 3 suspicious nods. "Then here's the deal. No more water guns until we make pancakes together." "Deal." The pause was long enough for Nathan to smirk in disbelief. Then the boys agreed. Just like that, the storm calmed a notch. From the counter, Nathan muttered, "That's a first." Harper caught his tone, but instead of replying with sass, she said quietly, "Maybe they just needed someone to look at them like they're more than trouble." For a second, Nathan's guard slipped. But as the boys dragged Harper toward the kitchen, he shook his head like a man refusing to believe in miracles. He didn't know yet. Harper wasn't just here for a job. She was here because she knew what it was like to be a kid no one stayed for. And she had no intention of leaving. The kitchen looked like a war zone. Pancake mix dusted across the counter, syrup sticky on the floor, and a fork inexplicably sticking out of a ceiling vent. Nathan stood leaning on the fridge, watching Harper like he was trying to figure out her angle. Most people came in with smiles. Then those smiles cracked when the chaos swallowed them. But Harper didn't flinch. She moved through the mess with quick hands, passing each boy a small task. Eli stirred the batter, Ethan fetched plates, and Evan, after a firm but gentle redirect, sat at the table drawing smiley faces on napkins. "You're not yelling," Nathan said finally, almost like it bothered him. "Why would I? They're kids, not soldiers," she said, sliding the spatula under a pancake. "They're little disasters," he muttered. She turned to him, meeting his eyes without backing down. Maybe. Or maybe they're just testing to see who's going to give up on them next. The words hit him harder than he let on. His jaw flexed, and for a moment, the noise in the room seemed to dim. He looked away, opening a cupboard just to have something to do. "You don't know us." "You're right," Harper said. "But I know what it feels like to watch a door close and know they're not coming back." Nathan's hand froze on the cupboard handle. Something about her tone, quiet but firm, cut through the cynicism he'd been building for years. But before he could ask what she meant, Eli yelled, "Dad, she made a pancake that looks like a heart." Nathan glanced at the skillet. Sure enough, Harper had shaped one like a heart, syrup pooling in its curve. The triplets giggled like they'd just won the lottery. Guess we've got a keeper, Ethan announced with pancake crumbs on his face. Nathan snorted, trying to hide the faint smile tugging at his mouth. We'll see. But when Harper slid a plate toward him, warm and dripping with syrup, he hesitated before taking it. He wasn't ready to trust her, not yet. But for the first time in months, breakfast didn't taste like another battle he had to fight alone. Outside, rain began to patter against the windows. Inside, for the first time, the house didn't feel quite so heavy. The rain outside turned heavier, tapping against the kitchen windows like impatient fingers. Harper had just finished stacking the last plate in the drying rack when she noticed the boys had disappeared from the table. She froze. Silence in this house was never a good sign. Nathan noticed too. He pushed off the counter, scanning the open archway into the living room. Eli? Ethan? Evan? A muffled giggle came from down the hall. Nathan groaned. I swear, if they've gotten into the... But before he could finish, the three of them came barreling back into the kitchen, wearing superhero capes made from his old flannel shirts and holding plastic swords. Defend the Queen, Evan shouted, pointing at Harper. Nathan blinked. Since when is she the Queen? Since she made pancakes and didn't yell, Ethan said with absolute certainty. Harper laughed, taking a mock bow. Well, I'm honored. But every queen needs knights who follow the rules. She crouched to their level, eyes warm but serious. And rule number 1, no swords near the kitchen stove. They groaned, but nodded, reluctantly dropping the swords by the table. Nathan leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed, watching the exchange. You've got them listening like you've been here for months. I'm just not in a hurry to leave, she replied without looking up. That last line made him go still. He studied her face, searching for sarcasm, but all he saw was calm resolve. Most people in his life had been in a hurry to leave. His ex-wife hadn't even lasted through the triplets' second birthday. Friends had faded away. Family had kept their distance. Too much noise, too much work. He'd learned to stop expecting anyone to stay. Before he could form a reply, a sudden crash upstairs made both adults spin toward the sound. Nathan's shoulders tensed instantly. Stay here, I'll check. But Harper was already moving, slipping past him before he could protest. They reached the boys' shared bedroom to find a toppled bookshelf, toys scattered everywhere, and Eli standing frozen beside it. His lip trembled. It was an accident, he blurted before Nathan could speak. I was trying to reach the robot on top. Nathan opened his mouth, ready for the lecture that always came. But Harper knelt beside Eli, brushing dust off his shoulder. Hey, you're not hurt, right? Eli shook his head. Okay, then we'll fix it together. But next time, ask for help instead of climbing. She glanced over her shoulder at Nathan. It's just wooden screws. He's okay. Nathan hesitated, the instinct to scold fighting with the unfamiliar feeling of letting it go. Finally, he exhaled. Yeah, we'll fix it. The look Eli gave his father in that moment, a small, relieved smile, made something twist in Nathan's chest. Harper noticed it, and her voice softened. You know, she said, sometimes the mess isn't the problem. It's the way we handle it. Nathan didn't reply, but he found himself looking at her longer than he meant to. The boys weren't the only ones she was getting through to. Downstairs, the scent of coffee still lingered. The rain outside hadn't stopped, but inside, the air felt warmer. And Nathan hated to admit it, but for the first time in years, he wasn't bracing for the next goodbye. The rain slowed to a steady drizzle by late afternoon, leaving the house in that quiet gray light that made every sound sharper. Harper sat cross-legged on the living room rug, helping the boys assemble a sprawling Lego city. The triplets were arguing over whether the castle should have a helicopter pad when Nathan walked in from the kitchen, drying his hands on a towel. He stopped in the doorway, unnoticed, just watching. The boys weren't climbing the walls, no one was screaming, and Harper, she looked like she belonged there. Not in a forced way, not as a hired helper checking the clock, just naturally woven into the rhythm of the house. "You're really not scared off yet?" he asked finally, making her glance up with a small smile. "Not my style," she said, fitting a blue block into place. "Besides, you didn't tell me your kids are master architects." "They're master something," Nathan muttered, earning a giggle from Evan. But beneath his sarcasm was a gnawing confusion. Why hadn't she left? Every other nanny had made excuses. Family emergency, personal reasons, after just hours. They couldn't handle the noise, the energy, the constant testing. And yet Harper not only stayed, she seemed to defuse chaos before it boiled over. "Why this job?" he asked suddenly, leaning against the wall. Harper's hands slowed over the Lego pieces. "Because I needed it." "That's not what I mean," Nathan said. "Why my kids, this house?" She met his gaze, her eyes steady. "Because I've been the kid nobody stayed for, and I know how much it matters when someone decides to." For a moment, Nathan couldn't find words. Something in his chest tightened. Guilt, maybe, or recognition. He thought of the nights the boys had asked if the last nanny was coming back, how his own answer had been a hollow, maybe. He thought of the way Eli's face had fallen after the bookshelf crash, expecting trouble before comfort. Before he could reply, the slam of the front door made them both turn. A short, sharp voice echoed through the house, female, angry. "Nathan, are you kidding me?" The triplets froze. Harper's posture shifted subtly, like she was bracing for something. Nathan's jaw locked. "Boys, go to your room for a bit." When they were gone, Harper stood slowly. "Ex-wife?" she guessed. "Unfortunately," he said, just as a tall woman in a designer coat stormed into the living room. Her hair was sleek, her makeup flawless, but her expression was a blade. "Who is she?" the woman demanded, eyes flicking to Harper like she was a stain on the carpet. "Nanny," Nathan replied flatly. The woman laughed, but it was cold. "Another one? What's this? Number 11? Her gaze snapped to Harper. "Let me guess, you think you're going to save him? Save them?" Harper didn't flinch. "No," she said calmly. "I'm just here to care for your kids." "My kids?" the woman scoffed. "You think spending a few hours with them gives you any right?" "That's enough, Olivia," Nathan cut in, his voice sharp. But Olivia wasn't done. She stepped closer to Harper, her tone dripping with contempt. "They'll eat you alive, and when you run, I'll be the one left to pick up the pieces." Harper's reply was quiet but steady. "Maybe that's why I'm not planning to run." For a second, Olivia's expression faltered, just a flicker, before she scoffed and turned away. "We'll see how long you last." With that, she left, heels clicking against the tile like gunshots. Nathan exhaled heavily, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sorry you had to see that." Harper shook her head. "I've seen worse, and I meant what I said." He looked at her then, not like an employer, not like a man measuring us, stranger, but like someone trying to decide if hope was worth the risk again. Night settled over the neighborhood, a warm gold glow spilling from the living room lamps. Nathan sat at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out in front of him, though he'd read the same sentence 3 times without absorbing it. Upstairs, Harper was wrangling the triplets into pajamas, an ordeal that usually involved screaming, bribery, and at least one accidental sock to the face. Tonight, however, he heard laughter. Actual, honest laughter. He pushed his chair back and headed upstairs, leaning in the hallway just outside the boys' room. Harper was sitting cross-legged on the floor, the three boys around her like satellites orbiting their sun. Eli was curled against her side, Ethan was dramatically acting out some made-up superhero scene, and Evan was giggling so hard he couldn't speak. "You can't catch me," Ethan yelled. "Oh, I can," Harper teased, catching him in a loose hug and tickling his side until he squealed. Then she noticed Nathan in the doorway. "Hey, Dad, your knights are ready for their bedtime quest." "Quest?" Nathan asked. "Yeah," Harper said, rising to her feet. "Every night they get to protect the kingdom in their dreams. But they can't do it without their royal good night." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" She leaned down and whispered something to each boy, something that made their grins soften into peaceful smiles. One by one, they climbed into bed, pulling blankets up to their chins. Nathan stepped closer, voice low. "What did you tell them?" "That they're brave enough, smart enough, and loved enough to handle whatever tomorrow brings." The words hit him like a punch and a balm all at once. He hadn't realized until now how long it had been since someone said something like that to his kids. Later, after the boys were asleep, Nathan found Harper in the kitchen, rinsing out mugs. "You didn't have to stay this late," he said. "I wanted to," she replied simply. He hesitated, then spoke more softly than he intended. "Most people don't get it. What it's like trying to raise them alone. You're the first person who hasn't made me feel like I'm failing just by existing." Her eyes softened, but she didn't fill the space with platitudes. "You're not failing. You're fighting. And they see that, Nathan. They just need to see you not fighting alone." Silence stretched. Thick, but not uncomfortable. The rain outside had stopped hours ago, but inside the air still felt freshly cleared, like the storm had been lifted. He walked her to the door, and before she stepped out, she turned to him. "I'm not going anywhere, no matter what she says." Nathan's throat tightened, but he managed a small, genuine smile. Then, "Welcome to the kingdom, Harper." As she disappeared into the cool night, Nathan closed the door and leaned against it, letting the quiet settle. Upstairs, the triplets slept peacefully, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the next chapter of their lives wouldn't be written in survival mode, but in something far better.